Hey guys, welcome back to the show. As you can see, we're in a very unique location today. Right now, I'm standing next to Mandy. How are you doing, Mandy?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing awesome, doing awesome. I brought you on here because, of course, everyone does gardening. Well, not everyone. Most people do gardening,
Yeah.
but you're doing gardening in a very, very unique way. To sum it all up,
Yes.
go ahead and just talk about exactly what you're doing.
I am doing some of the traditional gardening here, but I'm also doing a little bit of a automated style of gardening, and that is aquaponics. Basically, it is growing fish and then growing fish and using their waste to grow food. So I really am drawn to this style of growing indoors, especially because you can grow and control the climate easier, but then also it's sustainable and you don't have any waste from the usually you would have to bring in outside fertilizers to grow plants if you're doing a system like aquaponics. There's hydroponics or aeroponics, but they're
Okay.
using outside fertilizers. This is different because you're just using the fish waste, so you don't have any plastic containers from your fertilizer or fertilizer bags. So I really like it because it's part of one of my missions, which is just to be able to have a business but not have a lot of waste from that business. So I really like aquaponics. It's really fun, and it's really unique because I'll be able to grow fish here that we don't get to eat around here because they're not well, we don't get to eat them from around this area. Now we'll have local fish and local seafood. So I think that's really cool too. So.
Now, talk about what got you into aquaponics, because most people at home, if they're watching this right now, they're asking, what in the world is this? Go ahead and explain to everyone exactly, a little bit more about what that is and how you got so involved in it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, I got involved in it living in Southern California. It was the first time that I really started to see it. I myself started doing hydroponics, so I knew that I really liked that style of gardening. But hydroponics is, like I said, using the outside fertilizer and much of the same systems as what I'm doing behind us. But it's just it's a lot less natural. It's a lot less. It seems like a lot less natural of a way to do it. And so aquaponics, after seeing it, you just see how the systems have better success when you go and visit some of the aquaponic farms. So for me, aquaponics is slightly different. Basically, it's the plants are consuming the nitrates and nitrites from the left from the water, and so by doing that, that's what they're using to grow. But then you're getting cleaner water as well. So the fish are going to have pretty clean water because they're getting all of those. Of the contaminants are getting out of the water, and the plants, that's what they need to grow anyway. So for me, I think it was just a no-brainer for me, kind of, once I saw the other hydroponics, aeroponics, and have grown all of those myself. I'm like, well, of course I want the system that's more reliable and has it has more of the natural bacteria that would exist in gardening, the way that you garden with soil. The main difference is most people think of it, it's soilless gardening. So you're not using soil, you use things like clay, pebbles, or other media, rocks. Glass can work. Actually, you can use recycled glass and all of those, and that's what the plant roots are being held with. But then it's the water that's being drained into the systems is what comes from the fish tanks. So it's really unique because that's the whole system. That's what's happening, is your tanks are filling and draining, and with that process, though, the plants are getting what they need to grow, and then every time that it drains and then goes back into the fish tanks, the tanks are now cleaner as well. So it's basically, a very efficient fish tank that also grows plants. So I think it's really, really interesting.
Now, one interesting tidbit on this is that I remember when I first met you, probably about 3 years ago, you were talking to me about doing this.
Yes,
And
yes.
now here you are. You've
Yes,
actually done it.
yes, yes. I
So,
wanted to do it for a long time. A long time.
so let's go ahead and just talk about that, about how you had a goal, obviously,
Yes,
and you stuck with it.
yes,
You kept pursuing it. You kept
yes,
pursuing it. Talk
yes.
about what was your driving factor to keep that goal alive.
That is a very good question. I think the biggest thing for me is just a lot of my beliefs and a lot of the things that I've learned from my time on this planet. Some of it, my Marine Corps experience, coming into a lot of these things, led me to really want to be self sufficient and really take control of my own life, know where my food comes from, know survival techniques. So for me, this is a big part of me being able to, it's just like the last key to knowing that I can produce food not only for myself but for other people. I've been gardening for a lot of years, and I've even done small aquaponic tanks for quite a few little tank setups, but this will be the one that can, for me, it was always a goal to be able to produce enough food for other people too, not just to feed myself or to feed my family, but to feed other people. And this is a style of being able to grow enough food in a house small enough for how I want. So for me, I guess I just stuck with it by just keeping this goal in mind. It's been quite a project because just having the space to have the tanks is really been where a lot of the work has came in. So just trying to focus on why I really love aquaponics, and that's just because it is for me the only style of gardening that, like, would keep me up at night thinking about the design of the tanks. And it's just there's an interest in it because it mixes two worlds for me, which is two worlds that I'm constantly fighting between, which is loving our society, and of course I love airplanes, I love the ways that we get to travel, I love some of the things, some of the new technology of this world. But then I also love plants, I love nature. So for me, it's like the melting of those two worlds all into one is aquaponics, because you have the automated, scientific, very structured and rigid part of it, and then you also have the imbalance in nature and the fact that there's certain bacteria that might get you, or you might be trying to keep like green algae down. So for me, there's just there's a challenge in it that's there that I knew that until I reached like the point where I would have my own aquaponic space, I just probably wouldn't be to the level of gardening that I'd wanted to reach.
Now, there's kind of a huge push right now with environmental awareness.
Yes.
Is this a part of that for you?
Yes.
Talk about that.
Yes, this is a big part of environmental awareness for me. As I said, the biggest thing is a lot of farming techniques. Yes, we're growing food, but we're doing it with so much waste, and we're doing it in such unnatural technique, with such unnatural techniques that it's really causing a lot of problems for us. And this is just part of the quote unquote green movement, which is just trying to bring farming back to how we originally ate our food, which was, we didn't have a lot of waste. We used the things around us to fertilize our soil and to bring about a large bounty the next year. We didn't depend on chemicals or artificial processes. So for me, this is like a really big part of the environmental movement. I see it as something that is helping people to learn to grow their own food in right inside their house, like even if it's just with a little small fish tank, or for people to have setups like this in small communities, and then they have enough food to feed the community. So for me, I think it's a big part of the environmental movement, especially that's starting to focus on local food, because I think there is that demand for local food, because we're realizing our food doesn't need to come from across the country. It just doesn't make sense. We want it when it's fresh. We want it when it's full of vitamins and nutrients. And for that to be the case, it just has to be local. It has to be, something that's being grown in our area, and then we can get it. So.
All right, and you talk about these foods. What exactly will you be growing here?
Oh, that's exciting. Okay, so I have a few different things outdoors that I'll be doing as well, like Thai basil and lemongrass, kiwis, strawberries. I'm going to try to focus on some of the things that really aren't being grown around here in large quantities. And then indoors, I will be doing passion fruit, tilapia. I'm going to attempt prawns. That will just be a little bit more challenging. And then I will also be doing like a little bit of citrus fruit trees and peppers, citronella.
Okay.
Basically, my main crops are going to be focusing on the tilapia, the prawns, the seaweed, and the passion fruit. Those will be my 4 large crops indoors. So those are.
All right. Now, real quick, if there's a person at home and they're thinking about starting up something like this themselves,
Yes.
what advice would you give them at home?
I would just say just do your research. There's not a lot of, but there's multiple ways that you can set up your design of your aquaponics. You can do drain and flow, you can do it where the beds fill and then drain, and that's in an ebb and flow system, and that's one way of doing it. You can also do it just where you have like a fish tank and you imagine just a little raft floating on top that plants are sitting in. You can do a setup similar to that. I'll be doing the mix of 2 of those. There's also other mixes of setups that you can do. so to me the most important thing is just do your research, because if you have a solid tank design, then everything else comes pretty easy afterwards. You can decide on location once you know how big of a tank setup that you want to do. Is it something that you can do indoors or outdoors? So for me, I think the most important thing is just to try to do your research, figure out what aquaponics is exactly, how you can do it successfully, and then start from there. And you can always just start with, like, my first aquaponics setup was just a 5 gallon fish tank. So when you're starting at home, just start with a 5 gallon tank and a little rafts at the top. You can look up how to build the little raft part yourself, and for that, that's like a nice. It's as easy as doing a fish tank, really, except for making the cute little raft on top. So for me, I would say start with a 5 gallon aquaponics setup, see how you like it, see how it produces for you, and use like a goldfish or a koi fish in that, and then go from there. Because you can just do it, and then from there you can take your fish as they get bigger and grow your setup as your fish grow. So, and then get used to it. And it's for me, this is the only reason I have the confidence now to feel like I can do it on a large scale, is because I've had the little small tanks. And so for me, I'm like, I've learned the techniques and the things I did need to do to make them be successful, and I've learned the things I definitely don't want to do. There's a lot of little things like keeping your oxygen levels right. Otherwise, you can kill all your fish overnight even. So it's really important to know your chemistry and how to maintain your tanks, and learning how to do that on a small little fish tank is the perfect way. So that's what I would suggest.
All right. Now, a question I've asked every person that I've invited onto my show is that the goal of this project is to present the everyday person as being larger than life. That you don't have to be a big-time actor on Hollywood,
Yes.
or a big-time athlete at least. You can be, someone at home with their own garden.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think it is all of us together that make a good system and make everyone kind of have their own special place in society. So I definitely notice that out in the world, everybody's doing amazing things on a small scale or a large scale. All together, it's usually the mix of all of us doing it that make it, such as me doing this, but then there's someone to report on it so that people can find out how to do these things for themselves, so that we can link together. And I think that's one great thing about technology, is that we are all starting to be able to band together and find our own strengths and be able to support each other in those strengths, but have our own strengths. And I think this is just, one awesome thing that people do is gardening, because I love it. But then there's also a lot of other amazing things. So I think it's really great to, have your show and have people being connected to that. So.
Any last words that you want to give the folks at home who are watching this?
Do an aquaponics setup. It's awesome.
There you go. There you go. Well, thank you so much, Mandy.
Thanks, Joanne.
And thank you all at home for watching this. If you want to see more of Mandy or more of the other awesome people that I've invited on here, go ahead and like the page. And also, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. So again, thank you all so much, and I'll see you soon.